Hello everyone, how's it going? We're back with another video, and today we'll be looking at, maybe not even looking at, but discussing how to prep for Isengard on the legendary servers for all the different classes. So I thought about doing this because one, there's lots of classes that I never showcased in at 65 level cap. We didn't make guides for because I just haven't leveled them up yet, haven't had the time, whatever it may be. So this way, in one video, we can go through all of the classes on their traceries and trait setups. So this is what you can use once you head into 75, and then once Isengard actually comes out, I can still make the guides and we can go more in depth with them when they come out. But at least now, we'll kind of have a framework of what to look forward to, what to prep for. And yeah, we'll go. And this way we can go over classes that I haven't touched yet before. So just, yeah, as mentioned, haven't had the time. But before we go into the classes, we'll just quickly talk about virtues. I think did I do the math here? Yeah. So at 75, right? So we're going from 65 to 75, which means that we get. We have 10 levels to earn, which translates to 5 virtue levels to earn. So we'll go from 32 to 37. So each of your 5 virtues can go up to 37. Based on the math that I did, and I'll put the link of the virtue experience and stuff and how it all works in the description, it's a total of 4,000 or 45,500. That's how much virtue experience total you need to get all of your virtues, or your 5 virtues maxed. So basically, if you do like 22, 23 deeds that give you 2,000 virtue experience each, that should be enough to max out all of your 5 virtues. Of course, some deeds give you 4,000. You could have like the landscape difficulty and get a bonus. There could be a random bonus virtue experience day, so that'll of course limit how many deeds you need to do. But yeah, so what you can do is you just pick a random area. Oh, see, that one doesn't even give. So here we go. We got find every location out of except the last one, hit 75, come back to this area, find the last location, and then boom, there's your virtue experience. So you're just kind of prepping your deeds for 75. But yeah, so there's going to be 22 to 23 deeds that you need to do. And because Isengard, in theory, is going to be it's going to be easier than 65. Whether you like it or you hate it, the reality of the situation is that at this time, the morale of all of the bosses in raids and dungeons is going to be about the same to everything that was at level 50. So even less morale than a lot of 60 stuff, which is kind of insane. But regardless, because everything's not being revamped and looked at, enemies will die faster, and we're also going to be taking a whole lot less damage than we're used to on 65, which means that you won't need to focus on the 5 main morale / vitality virtues as much. This gives you the option to use 1 or 2 slots for, like, maybe you need some more crits, you want confidence or determination. Maybe you were lacking some mitigation, so now you can have tolerance in there. If you're tanking, maybe wit is important to you, or idealism, right, for that incoming healing, or you're a bear and you want idealism. So now you just have more to work with, rather than kind of being almost forced or feel like you're forced to take all of the morale-focused virtues. But yeah, so that's it for virtues. Let's go into the classes, and I did promise that we would talk about Burg and Hunter. We did talk about Burg in our yesterday's video. They'll just be screenshots that appear here on screen as I go through this. So this is what your for Burg Red Line will look like. Right now, you obviously won't have all of the points in blue line just yet, but that's kind of what you're going to work towards. You're going to want 2 Heraldries of the Sparrows, 2 Heroic Precisions, your single target attack crit, your single target attack damage, and then for class traceries, you're looking at crit chain skill damage, crit chain skill cooldown, coup de grace damage, bloodletter, damage from stealth, and the red one is just another crit chain skill. We talked about this in the Burg video specifically, but yeah, this screenshot here is taken from the Bullroar server, the test server. So red is just the temporary placeholder name. It should just be called crit chain skill crit multiplier or something like that. It's another crit chain skill one. Then yellow line, this is what your tree would look like. If you do take both points at the bottom of the yellow tree, and of course right now you're not going to have at 65, you're not going to have all the points in the blue line and red line just yet, but that's what you're working towards when you hit 75. And you're going to take 2 Heraldries of the Sparrows, 2 Grand Willpower, base morale, incoming tactical damage reduction, and then your Clever Retort stuff, your Trick Duration and Trick Debuff, Reveal Weakness, and like we discussed in the Burg video, you'll Riddle Range and Duration just makes your life easier. You don't need to take the Riddle Range and Duration, but Riddle by default, the cooldown comes, you get the cooldown back, or a Riddle comes off cooldown when the duration of the mez ends. So you basically, the enemy will have like a split second or two of running around before you could mez them again. So the Riddle duration tracery just prevents that from happening, where once Riddle comes off cooldown, you can just mez it again and not worry about it. It's not life-changing. There's ways around it where you can stun the enemy, wait for the stun to end, and then remez. But just to make your life easier, I think the Riddle duration is quite nice. Now, Hunter. Talking about Hunter, don't have a blue line. I haven't tested blue line a whole lot. I did a little bit of testing. From what I've done, I don't really like blue line personally, and I just found that red line was hitting a lot more. This could be different at like 150 or higher as time goes on, but at this level cap, I don't know if it's quite working out. I think red just does a lot better. So this is kind of what I've messed with on red line. You could put some stuff into like you could finish off a couple of points, right? The swift draw or whatever. You could put points into that, but the key things from blue is getting that range damage. That's the key thing from blue that you need. The rest of it is just kind of optional or your choice kind of thing, preference thing. But yeah, you'll want 2 Heraldries of the Sparrows, 2 Heroic Precisions, your single target attack damage and attack crit, and then you're focusing on the Focus Traceries, Range Skill Multiplier, and then Upshot. Upshot damage is really good now. Burn Hot is great, and then that Heart Seeker damage. I think that's probably your best bet right now because we no longer have the strength or precision stance stuff. So this is what I found to be really good right now. Yellow line, was recommended by friends and what I gathered from kinmates and stuff. It basically, yellow line almost plays like a yellow Burg or a yellow LM, where you're no longer placing traps. It's more focused around just being a utility raid role or that support role of just buffing allies, debuffing enemies, etc. But what's kind of nice with yellow is that it feels like there's a lot more I feel like anyways that there's a lot more damage than there used to be, and because it's less trap focused, it's a little bit more interactive, I guess. So it could be kind of fun in raids, and so we'll have to see how it goes. Obviously, Hunter's still, like Burg, is brand new, so we're still going to learn a lot of things as things progress. But yeah, 2 heraldries of the Sparrow, grand willpower because we're focused base, or like we're a support role focus. We're not damage focused. So then we also take the base morale and the tactical damage reduction. And then for your class traceries, range skill, critical multiplier, Cry of the Hunter, bubble potency, blasting arrow, ranged attack, evade, and block chance, so that it makes it harder for enemies to resist your skills, basically. Distracting shot cooldown, just basically allowing you to kind of almost replace like a lore master or a Burg in a mez scenario, which is kind of fun, and allows for just different group compositions. And then Kingsfoil healing, I think, is also just kind of fun. Hunter being a healer, like an off healer, just sounds silly saying it out loud, but I think that's kind of cool. All right, moving on to Bear, which we have not discussed in the past before. We have not made a Bear guide just yet. Hopefully that's one that I'll do at 75. Right now, you won't have... At 65, you won't have the yellow line stuff just yet, but that's what you work towards at 75. And this is what your traceries would look like. You're basically your standard stuff of whenever you're a tank, you're doing base morale. The thing with Bear is that rather than taking all of the, like, using the grand willpower, you're taking all the incoming healing stuff. Just because you have so much healing, you don't really need the tactical mitigation as much as other tank classes. But you want that base morale, obviously. And I just think that it's a lot of fun to have all this incoming healing stuff. So I look forward to actually trying that out a lot more on the 75, or in Isengard when 75 comes out. Red Line, this is what you're looking at. Nothing too fancy, just your standard Sparrow for crit, or you take Might. What is the Might one? I always forget what the Might one is called. I probably don't have it on. Lion for Might, Sparrow for crit, and then Heroic Precision. I'm not sure which 2 class traceries are being added with 75, but I'm sure by this point most of you will have the majority of these traceries anyways. Yellow line, this is what we're looking at. Again, we're not quite fully into blue, or going into blue at this point, but we'll be able to hit 75, and we're just focusing on our single target healing and the air. We're not taking the crit stuff. Where we take the crit comes from like Heroic Precision, so we're not doing single target healing and single target like crit healing stuff. We want the single target healing and the AoE healing, because Bear, of course, we have all of that AoE healing that a lot of other classes don't have, or it's not as strong as Bear. So we want to try to support both of our healing with single target and AoE. Brawler, which I'm leveling a Brawler right now and learning it, but I have not actually done a whole lot with Brawler yet, so this is kind of fun. And we'll get into this with Guard here, which I can do after Brawler. But they take the area effect target count rather than the tactical, like the incoming tactical damage reduction, because of how their taunts work and a specific fight in the raid that's coming out. Basically, there's a scenario where ads will spawn. One tank is tanking one boss, another tank is taking another boss, and when ads spawn, one specific tank has to pull aggro on these adds that spawn, but your some classes, their taunts either won't reach or they don't pull enough targets. So you need that area effect target count to increase the number that their taunt actually hits. So Brawler is one of those examples where you need to essentially buff the target count of your taunts, which is why they don't have the incoming tactical damage reduction. Red Line, I think is pretty simple. Again, I haven't played a whole lot of Brawler, but I thought I'd just show it anyways, show you what to go for, and what to stockpile just in case you don't have it yet. Yeah. Now moving on, let's go to Guardian, because we just talked about the tank thing. So Red Line stays the same. Nothing changing with Red Line. All we're essentially adding is, I believe we are adding the because we have parry response and the stamp cooldown. If you haven't taken stamp cooldown yet, now is the time. We talked about taking stamp cooldown and having it line up with sweeping cut because of animation canceling and fun stuff like that. Now would be the time to take stamp cooldown if you haven't. I think it's really fun. But now we also take brutal assault damage, and then we do sting damage and critical chance. I'm assuming most people, if they didn't take the stamp cooldown, would have taken brutal assault. So if you took brutal assault, you now take stamp. If you did take stamp, now you're taking brutal assault, and then your next one that you're taking is the sting damage and critical chance. But blue line. So this is what the blue line looks like. We're really far into yellow now, which is really kind of fun. But we get access to a unique skill as Guardian, which is War Chant, which we don't have just yet. I mean, we could if you move some points around. But basically we now have War Chant. War Chant isn't technically a forced taunt, but it acts as a taunt. If you've played Warden, you have a lot of skills that are greatly increased threat, but it's not necessarily a forced taunt. War Chant is very similar in that it's not technically a forced taunt, but you use the skill and it just greatly increases your threat against the targets. By default, it only hits 3 targets, which is not enough for a scenario in the raid where, like we talked about with Brawler, one tank is on one boss, a second tank is on another boss, essentially, and adds will spawn. When you need to tank the adds, you don't want to force taunt with challenge, otherwise you might pull the second boss away from the other tank. So instead what you do is you use War Chant, and then you're not force taunting the other boss, you're just basically mini taunting the adds that spawn and get them on you right away. They come to you and then you can challenge, rather than you walking up to them and kind of challenging. You don't have to take the area effect target count, right, to help with War Chant, because like we said, War Chant only takes 3 targets by default. We need more than 3, so that's why we have the area effect target count. You don't have to do that. You can keep the tactical damage reduction if you wish. This area effect target count will just make your life easier in raid. It's just something to consider. But if your group can work around it, if the group's prepared in case you accidentally taunt the extra boss or whatever the case may be, then fine. This, again, is just to make your life easier. Then I guess the stuff that we're adding with Blue Line would be... Is it the Warrior's Heart stuff? I think it might be to turn the tables as well, actually, which is kind of more of a preference thing. Yeah, because we have Warrior's Heart, Morale Heal, and the maximum health with it. Catch a Breath cooldown, Force Taunt, and Guardian's Pledge. So now we're taking the Warrior's Heart duration, and then kind of as a preference thing, we just take Turn the Tables, where we're lowering the cooldown of Turn the Tables, but now we also gain just a little bit of extra vitality. So if you really hate being stunned, which there are kind of quite a few stuns in Isengard, Turn the Tables is just nice. It's like a weird quality of life choice of just, I hate being stunned. I want access to Turn the Tables more. But if you're not worried about that, I think another good option is, I think you can either do Guardian's Ward damage or bash damage. Bash damage will give you more tactical mitt as well, which is kind of nice. And Guardian's Ward is just parry rating. Kind of just depends on what you're looking for. There's also a War Chant one, I believe. Yeah, there's War Chant duration, which you could take, because we do get War Chant now. So you can... What happens is War Chant gives you... it reduces the damage that the enemy does by 5%, so you can increase... It normally lasts 10 seconds. With a gold tracery, I think it's 15 seconds. So you can just make that last longer, but the War Chant tracery also just gives you vitality. So you could do that as an option instead of Turn the Tables if you wish. Turn the Tables, I just wanted to showcase it because it's just a nice little fun quality of life thing, but it's totally preference by that point. Totally preference. All right, moving on to Captain. Starting with Blue Captain, which we didn't really showcase in our last class guide. So here's just an opportunity of what to look for if you were a Blue Captain, one of those few out there. This is what you can try out and let me know. I haven't done Blue a whole lot on my Captain, but it does have its niche roles, and that's kind of fun. Yellow Captain. They're still using their incoming tactical damage reduction. They're not switching it out for area target count, mostly because they just don't have the same amount of AoE taunts, if I remember correctly, compared to the other tanks. So they're just not the tank that is going to take on those adds, so they don't need to worry about it. But yeah, this is what you can work towards for Yellow Line. Red Line. I think what we're adding... Right, this is where we get to go into the bleeds now as Red Line. So we're looking at Grave Wound damage and more bleed pulses. And now we're kind of shifting our points around. I know we had some points in the trait in Blue Line where we were kind of buffing our damage a little bit, like by a couple %. But now that we have more points to use and we have more traceries to use, what we're doing is we're shifting our points now into Grave Wound and more bleed stuff. Because now our damage as Red Line Captain is actually going to be quite high, and you're going to see a massive increase in your DPS overall from 65. So Red Captains, I think, are going to have a lot of fun. They're just going to see a lot more damage, a lot more higher numbers. Because we're shifting our points back into red more and less in blue to get more bleed damage, and then we're increasing that bleed damage with our traceries. And this is only going to continue, because eventually we're going to add like single target attack bleed damage and bleed crit traceries, and so Captain's damage is just really going to continue to scale quite nicely, I think, as the level cap increases. Red Line Champ. What's being added here would be Swift Strike and Blade Damage Power Restore and Devastating Strike, I think, because it's Remorseless, Ferocious, Wild Attack, and Brutal Strike. So we're now just adding Swift Strike and Devastating Strike. So we're just covering all of our bases. Everything's being increased. And getting a little extra points to spend in yellow, but if you wanted to, or you can put your points essentially into blue and get that extra vitality. Might not be as needed, but as I always say, you can never have too much morale, so it's always fun having more morale. Yellow line champ, I believe what we're adding is rend bleed damage and is it blade wall damage? Because we have battle frenzy, we have exchange of blows and raging blades. Then I think it's fury of blades that we have. So I think we're adding the rend bleed and the blade wall, if I remember right. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think that's what it is. And we're just putting more points into red for crit and more points into blue for more vitality. Yeah. So that is champ, nice and simple. Lore master. So basically, with our points, there's always been points that you can mix around depending on your preference, right? I would recommend finishing off staff sweep. I currently have it left as 2 out of 3 points, so you might as well make that 3 out of 3 now and just make your life easier with maintaining that buff. I also have my points put fully into Ring of Fire, and then at that point the rest of my points will just go into blue. This is just another option to show you that you can move your points around a bit. I also put points into Cracked Earth personally because I just like using Cracked Earth a lot because I like using it to buff and go to war. And it's just another skill to spam. But speaking of Ents Go to War, we now add Ents Go to War, Tracery, and the other Burning Embers one. We have Burning Embers damage, so now we're adding Burning Embers crit. So just more damage being done there. All right, yellow line, I think it's quite simple. We're just moving further down into the red tree, and then we're adding the Power Restore Tracery and the staff. I think it's the staff strike damage, right? Because we have Fire Frost, Air Lore Beacon. Yeah, so we're adding staff strike damage because we're now getting access to staff strike, and then power restore just to make our power restore a little bit easier. Kind of a preference thing, but it also gives the tracery itself gives vitality, so it's just more morale, which is kind of nice. We're getting to the point now where Yellow Lore Master is going to get a lot more of their damaging traceries, because Lore Master can be a really good support role that also deals a great amount of damage for a support role. So we're kind of trying to support that, and we're starting to see that with the addition of Staff Strike. And if you wanted to add like a Burning Embers instead of Power Restore, you could do that. And you could move some trait points around to increase, fire damage or something like that. So it's just something to consider or play around with. Blue Mariner, I know literally zero about Mariner. So this is what was recommended, and these are the traceries. I have not touched Mariner yet. This is a class that I've never have looked at. I kind of vaguely know what they do in terms of like how the mechanics of the class work, but in terms of what their skills are and the names and what to build, I know literally nothing. So this is what's recommended. I hope it works for you. And Red Mariner, this is what's recommended. I hope it works for you. Once again, I know literally nothing. But they seem fun, and it's a class that I'll play eventually, but for now I can't really help you. So hopefully this information is just helpful enough, but I can't give you any extra little tidbits. All right, we're now on Minstrel. Minstrel is, as we discussed in our Minstrel guide, is a messy one, where we have blue line, we have red line, and then we have a blue-yellow line and a red-yellow line. And how your traceries work, as we discussed, you should try to make sure that the item, basically, if the traceries affect only blue line skills, they should be on one item. If the tracery affects skills that you have in multiple specs, so if you have like minor ballads, for example, you can use as yellow focused or in red. They benefit you in both scenarios. Then you should have those on a different item and not combine it with something that is red focused or blue focused. So we talked about that in our Minstrel guide. So the traceries that you see are more of just, this is a list of traceries to get, not necessarily put these ones together. These are just the total ones that you'll want. So this is what we're looking at for blue. You'll want all of these. So, for example, Anthem Duration and Rally Cooldown can technically be a yellow line thing as well, right? So you want to put those two on the same item. Don't necessarily separate them. This is just to help you in the long term, right? So this is what a yellow, a yellow blue or a blue yellow, however you want to, I guess blue yellow build would look like for trait points. And then the yellow traceries would look something like this, where, see, we have Anthem Duration, Cooldown, and the Anthem of War and Prowess, right? So when you're blue, you'll want those three traceries, but then the other three traceries on your other item can be the more blue focused stuff. And then, so this is your red specific setup. And then you'll probably want your like ballad damage, piercing cry damage on one item with your anthem stuff, and then all the red stuff on another item. And then, yeah, this would be a red-yellow setup. So it's very confusing. Minstrels understand it better than others. They know what's going on. So this is just an opportunity to really plan out your weapons to better set you up for the future and make your life just a whole lot easier. Alrighty, moving on to Runekeeper. Starting with blue, this is very standard blue line setup. Nothing too fancy. We're just getting some crit defense, mostly, in yellow now before we move further down the tree or branch into red to just get some little extra damage here and there. I believe I'm trying to remember which traceries are being added for blue at this level cap, because they're all so good. I think it's Bombastic Healing and Word of Exaltation. I think, I could be wrong, but really we're getting more of our really good stuff. So that's just really helpful for blue arcades. It's only going to make their healing stronger. Red arcade, this I think we're getting close to that point now where red arcade will feel better now. We went through Moria and you couldn't AoE and you couldn't have a bunch of dots, and yellow's damage was just too good. So red kind of fell behind. Mirkwood, there was a little bit more scenarios where red was okay to use. Right? For example, SG, you couldn't even do lightning damage. You had to do fire damage. And there was less things to worry about with AoE. However, yellow line still supplied better bursts, so in fights like North Cotton Farms to destroy eggs, yellow was just better. But now we're in a situation where red's damage is better. We have more of our good traceries to use. So the damage of red will just feel nicer. And there's not as many as those niche scenarios where, oh, you can't AoE, you can't do dots, you can't do fire damage. Yellow line will still perform slightly better, but red won't feel as bad. But speaking of yellow, this is what we're looking at for yellow line. We're basically just, we're kind of finishing up on the last couple of yellow line traceries, and we're getting to the point now where we're kind of going to go to weird like support type traceries. Like I think after this point we'll get like some finesse ones that are tied to like the Fury of Winter stuff, which will feel less impactful, but we're kind of just rounding out the rest of yellow after this point. Trait point wise, we're essentially getting some extra damage from the red line trait and technically extra damage for the blue line trait because we're just increasing our will. Warden. We did talk about Warden. This is kind of the trait setup I would use for Isengard. And if I remember right, basically what we're adding is the restorative shield work cooldown and steadfast cooldown. Because we had the shield gambit healing, the heal bonus for conviction, the mastery cooldown already, and the marked and diminished target potency. So now we're just, I believe if I remember right, we're adding steadfast and restorative shield work. And we're just moving further down into the yellow tree. Nothing too fancy there. And red warden's kind of the same thing, where we're just moving further down into the yellow tree, and we are adding I think we're adding marked and diminished targets if I remember right, and then one of the fist stuff, because I think we had fist gambit damage and fist shield or fist spear, so we're adding the other fist one. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, that's what Warden would look like. So hopefully you found that all helpful, or at least just a quick snapshot of, hey, this is what I can look forward to. This is what I can work towards. I don't have this one tracery. Let me go farm some dungeons or pump out my reward track, get enough ancient script, and then I can go kind of purchase a blue version or something in Rivendell. And then you'll at least have it ready for when Isengard comes out. Videos are going to... I don't think I'll have any more videos coming out guide-wise before Isengard comes out. There will be a another event, class event thing that will come out later. But guide-wise, I don't think anything comes out. I don't have anything planned right now, but if there is something you want before Isengard comes out, let me know. Otherwise, in about 2 weeks, we get Isengard, and I'll start the more specific class guides again, where we'll go into more rotation stuff, talk about gear. This was truly just supposed to be a quick little snapshot about the different classes and something you can just look at, like, okay, I need that tracery, moving on kind of thing. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.